I'm Jim Check. It's Friday, July 25th. I'm with Now Media, and I'm all by myself. Andrea Jensenberg, that was sitting in for the vacation Ian Burns, is not available today. So it's all just me, all by my lonesome. Ian Burns back on Monday. So let's see if we can kick this off here. Trump says no trade deal likely for Canada by August 1st. That's the big one. Canadians overtaxed. I just put that in again because I think we need to see that over and over and over again. Housing starts predicted to fall in Canada this year when there was a lot of talk about how they were going to double housing. Doug Ford wants to issue his own work permits after getting frustrated with the federal government. And is climate hysteria finally over? And Newmont has rescued those miners. So there's some good news for you. But we're going to kick it off right away with Donald J. Trump talking about the trade deal for Canada here. Let's play this clip.
We haven't really had a lot of luck with Canada. I think Canada could be one where they'll just pay tariffs, not really a negotiation. We're working very diligently with Europe, the EU, which covers a lot of territory, a lot of countries, and that's the big one right now. We have the confines of a deal with China, but we haven't really. We don't have a deal with Canada. We haven't been focused on it. When the letters go out, they're a page and a half. That means they have a deal, it's done, they pay that tariff, and that is a contract, essentially. And they can come into the country, they're going to pay a tariff. I'm going to keep it minimal, I'm going to keep it, I'm not looking to hurt countries. I could do that too, but I'm not looking to do that. But when that
There you go. Not likely to see the August 1st deadline. And I think Mark Carney was kind of playing that down already. He was kind of letting us know that there likely wasn't going to be a deal by August 1st, but lots of times Trump uses that as a negotiation tactic. And this next one here, and this is what we talked about yesterday, just as a reminder, we should put this up every day almost. Canadians paying 42% of the average Canadian family paying 42% of its income in taxes. Canada and its Canadian citizens overtaxed. And this is the one that the Liberal government ran on, that they said they were going to increase housing starts. But here we go. Blacklock story is saying housing starts likely will fall this year, and that's according to the CMHC. Cabinet was counting on doubling starts to meet affordability target, but new construction is slowing. Developers remain cautious as financing conditions stay tight, and that's the Bank of Canada rate that doesn't look like it's going to fall anymore. That's what the economists are saying. New construction slowing, and that's from the CMHC. Housing starts last year totaled 245,367. The federal insurer predicted a decline to 237,833 this year. Cabinet has targeted a minimum of 500,000 annually through the rest of the decade to restore housing affordability. It looks like they're going to have to make up some ground in the future years if they're going to meet those targets. Rents and mortgage expenses are so high in Canada, the typical household loses 52% of income to shelter costs, according to a 2024 transition binder at the Housing Department. The rate was only 38% a decade ago. So again, housing starts likely to fall after the promise of doubling housing here in Canada. Likely to fall. Sad news. Doug Ford, frustrated with the federal government. It's close to over $1 billion, actually. Over $1 billion is spent housing asylum seekers, and they're not issuing work permits. So Doug Ford says he's going to issue the work permits himself. So let's play this clip here from Doug Ford.
I have a tremendous amount of asylum seekers that are up in Etobicoke and in the hotels. They're healthy, they're willing to work, they're hard-working people, but they're waiting over 2 years. And they're just sucking off the system nonstop, not their fault. The fault falls under immigration, that it takes over 2 years to get a work permit. So as we're paying education, paying healthcare, paying their rent in hotels, which is exorbitant, they want to get out there. And they want to be like every other Canadian. They want to find a job. They want to be able to first start off renting a condo or part of a house and then buying a house. But we're tired of waiting around. I can't wait around. It's costing our province an absolute fortune. Just last year, we were close to 100,000 asylum seekers, and I'm still waiting to get paid back from the federal government. That's one issue. but there's jobs available in Ontario, and we need to give them work permits and make sure that they're out there working and contributing back to society. I'm not waiting any longer. We're issuing work permits in Ontario for these folks to give back and contribute to society in Ontario.
There you go. Doug Ford says he's going to issue his own work permits. The federal government obviously too busy watching Netflix to issue work permits. And there's a lot of people pushing back on this. And here's Brian Lilly from the Toronto Star saying Doug Ford's plan to issue provincial work permits to asylum seekers is a huge mistake that must be stopped. And then, you know, the youth unemployment rate is so high, and the unemployment rate in Ontario, in some sectors of Ontario, is really high too. And it just would actually increase that unemployment rate. And here's another one here from the Global News. Ford's government plans to grant asylum seekers. And this is from Table Salt, and that's a huge way to for people to sneak in and claim asylum. It could really increase the unemployment rate in Ontario, according to a lot of people there. The other big story out there that National Post did this, and as an opinion piece, is climate hysteria over? We're starting to see that. Only 4% of Canadians now think climate change is our top problem. But many of the hardcore activists are ready to block projects, and that's, you know, Stephen Guilbeault would be the one heading this up. Future psychologists, though, and economists and historians will examine the early 21st century phenomenon of collective climate hysteria, what drove it, what ended it, and what damage it has wrought here in this Canadian economy here when we've suppressed our natural resources. One thing is certain, is all but certain, there will be no admission of guilt for the erroneous harm inflicted on Canada and other economies. This is from the National Post article. You should go read it yourself. And Mark Carney, one of the leaders in this climate change hysteria, seems to be changing his own tune here lately. So interesting. Is climate change hysteria over? Is it over for you? I guess is the question. Is it time for Canada to start tapping our own natural wealth and resources here? And talking about the federal jobs that are busy watching Netflix. Here it is. Now they're saying they may cut 60,000 public jobs. Don't forget the Liberals ran on this and said that not to elect Pierre Poilievre. And they went after his riding, saying that Pierre Poilievre was going to cut the federal government and that you needed to vote for the Liberals to protect your job. And here you go. Mark Carney's Liberals likely going to 60,000 job cuts. 60,000. Huge. Which could be like a $42 billion in savings. So, wow. Netflix might suffer from that because who's going to watch all the Netflix? The sentencing for the Freedom Convoy won't happen till October 7th. So they've delayed the sentencing until October 7th. Tamara Lich and Chris Barr will be sentenced in the fall. They'll learn their fate in an Ottawa courtroom on October 7th after being found guilty of mischief, again, parking violations and noise violations. The Crown is seeking a 7-year sentence for Lich and 8 years for Barber. Interesting. And in all that, though, too, one of the lawyers, Eva Chipwick, that RBC debanked her. The RBC is debanking a convoy lawyer as she's outside of the bank's risk. RBC did not debank the alleged head of the mafia after investigation journalists suggested his organization infiltrated the bank. That's just wild that Eva Chipwick was debanked by the RBC. And there's that letter there that you can go and find on Eva's X account there. Not a good look, RBC. The other big court case yesterday, the 5 former members of Canada's 28 World Junior team were acquitted of all charges there in the London hockey trial. But that doesn't mean they get to go play back in the NHL. NHL pushing back on that. 5 members of the were acquitted following that high-profile sexual assault case. Despite not guilty verdicts, the NHL pushing back on them being ineligible to play. NHL Players Association want them back there. So there you go. In our international news, another one of the other one in the Coldplay kiss cam there has resigned. Kristen Cabot has resigned after the CEO resigned. So now that's both of them that have resigned. Kristen Cabot has resigned from the company days after the CEO, Andy Byron, did the same. The pair, both married to other people, were caught sharing a romantic moment on the big screen. That thing got so much airplay, it's crazy the amount of airplay was going on. Yeah, so I am going solo this morning, so probably going a little faster than usual. Nobody else to chime in. So if you have some comments you want to chime in, maybe I can have some discussion with some of our regular watchers. But Trump, a little clip here from Trump saying how successful tariffs have been in the United States. I mean, let's play this clip here.
Do you think there's the possibility of a rebate to the American public in terms of all of that money?
We're thinking about that, actually. We have so much money coming in. We're thinking about a little rebate, but the big thing we want to do is pay down debt. But we're thinking about a rebate. That's a very good question. You just made a lot of news. We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
There you go. A lot of people saying that the tariffs were going to destroy the stock market and the economy of the United States. Stock markets are at all-time highs, and it looks like what he's been doing there has been working out for the American people, not so much for the Canadian people. We need to tap into our natural resources, and again, say that over and over and over again. And this time for hand-wringing and all this other stuff and blocking and all that stuff has to come to an end if Canada wants to compete on the world stage and deliver our natural wealth to our people. And then in sadder news here, Trump had some comments on the Hamas negotiations with Israel. We're going to play this clip here.
Yeah, Gaza, they pulled out of Gaza. They pulled out in terms of negotiating. It was too bad. Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die. And it's very, very bad.
Are you done with
and it got to be to a point where you're going to have to finish the job. They really, they asked for things. Don't forget, we got a lot of hostages out. So now we're down to the final hostages. And they know what happens after you get the final hostages. And basically because of that, they really didn't want to make a deal. I saw that. So they pulled out, and they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to get rid of it.
And then Canada, along with many other nations, have called on for a ceasefire. And here's Mark Carney's reaction. Canada condemns Israel's government failure to prevent the rapidly deteriorating humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And he calls on both sides to negotiate an immediate ceasefire. That doesn't look good that they pulled out of the negotiations there. Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, has said that he recognizes Palestine now as an independent state. But Trump had a comment on that and said it doesn't really matter what the president of France has to say. The Democrats put out a tweet that kind of backfired on them. Now they've deleted it. The Democrats put out this tweet here that says, U.S. grocery prices reached record highs in 2025. And if we pull up this other chart that the Rapid Response put out there for 47, they highlighted this is the part for Joe Biden. 4 years of Joe Biden. And they quickly deleted that tweet, said that didn't look good. That's, I don't know who runs these accounts sometimes, right? Not very bright. And you say the same thing here in Canada lots of times. Who's running these X accounts? I'd say the same thing for some of the media companies here in Canada. It's good journalists that work for both CBC and CTV, but whoever runs those X accounts there, I am not sure some of those tweets are so biased, and maybe they should pay somebody that has some more knowledge running those X accounts. BC News, NBC News, here you go. We did this story yesterday on Kelowna Now. Mind-boggling closures. BC Conservatives MLA slam NDP over maternity care chaos. This is now affecting the Royal Inland Hospital there in Kamloops, right? And so the maternity wards in Kamloops and Prince George are the latest to be hit with potential closures due to doctor shortages. And that there's news that gaps in physician coverage could lead to reduced access to maternity care in Kamloops has been met with shocking disbeliefs. And that's from Conservative MLA Peter Millibar in a statement here. And then and more in the healthcare crisis here in British Columbia. This is from the Conservative Caucus of BC. The NDP broke health care and claiming that there was last year nearly 142,000 people left the ER without even being seen. That's an 86% increase since 2018. We all know from lots of personal reflections that a lot of people maybe you can talk to say they go and sit in ER for 8, 10, 12 hours before they get seen by a doctor. Eleanor Sturko, another conservative MLA, pushed this out here. She was a former RCMP officer as well. And she says, great work by the Vancouver PD taking down violent crime network, getting 14 kilos of deadly fentanyl and other drugs off the streets. But disappointing, the NDP's justice is so dysfunctional that no criminal charges have been laid and the people arrested were all released from custody. 19 arrested, 2 million drugs seized, and all released from custody. And then this is the miners. This is they've all been rescued at Newmont's Red Chris mine in Canada. There you go. So that's in BC. So good news there. Markets. Let's talk about the markets. Markets are actually, relatively flat this morning as well, but all-time highs. Everything's at all-time highs. Like everything is at all-time highs. And for gold is off a bit, but still trading in that range, actually below the 3,300. Well, no, sorry about that. Trading in that range at 3,300 to 3,400. Bitcoin off a bit this morning. Bitcoin now at 115,000, still trading near all-time highs. And oil actually this morning off a little bit. West Texas Intermediate at 65.36, and Western Canadian Select trading at that discount at 53.68. There you go. Who's the biggest savers in Canada? Albertans. Albertans the biggest savers. And how does the rest of the country stack up? And there we got a chart here showing you that Albertans lead the way in Quebec and Saskatchewan. There you go. The economic engines, Alberta and Saskatchewan, bigger savers, and BC way down there. And not looking good for British Columbia. So there you go. In our technology section, energy. Elon Musk, big proponent of the sun as the energy. I do have solar on my roof, do believe in it as well. But we should be using our natural resources here to fund our future. And just like the Norwegians do, $300,000 per capita in their sovereign wealth fund. $2 trillion. The only sovereign wealth fund in Canada is the Albertans have a sovereign wealth fund. We do not in British Columbia, but we could. Canada could have a sovereign wealth fund if we had other alternative pathways for our energy. Again, Justin Trudeau. We're going to have Justin Trudeau talk a little bit here at the end. He's going to have a little clip back from Justin, so stick around for that. When he told the Germans and the Japanese that there's no business case for LNG. He wanted to sell them hydrogen. I wonder where hydrogen's at right now. I think there's 7 filling stations for automotive hydrogen across Canada right now. 7. Count them. Most automakers have given up on hydrogen. Go take a look at Ballard's stock chart as well and see where hydrogen's at. Nvidia CEO, who was speaking at that conference, the All-In conference, made the boldest prediction of his career. AI will create more millionaires in 5 years than the internet did in 20. There you go. So, no, that's not the right chart. That's for later. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have it, but that's okay. You got a sneak peek of Justin there. He's coming up later. But Honda and other automakers cancel major EV programs. So that, and this is the thing in Canada. We talk about this over and over and over again on the show. If Canada doesn't drop this EV mandate, we will not have an auto sector here in Canada to defend. That is much as plain and simple. And I've said it a zillion times. And I drive an electric car. I drive an EV. I drive a Tesla. And I have solar on my roof. But trying to force Canadians into EV mandates is just going to destroy the auto sector. So you have to decide what it is that you want. A climate hysteria over an EV mandate that you can't admit you're wrong to, or an auto sector where that employs people and pays good money for the jobs, right? And in our health section, I don't have an image to show you this morning, but I did watch a show on the CEO, really good stuff there, and the doctor talking about, the cure for most of the stuff that we do is in our food. Eating better foods, and eating whole foods is the cure. Less processed foods. Take the processed foods out of your diet. And he talked about alcohol, this doctor, and he said, there's good, there's good in wine. There's some good stuff in the grape there, but the alcohol in all liquor is toxic to all parts of your body. So like the people who say, oh, a glass of wine is good for you. Yeah, sure, there's some health benefits in it because of the grape in there, but the alcohol is toxic to you. So keep that in mind. And we're off to the fool of the day. And here's Justin here. And we're just going to a little blowback because of the Freedom Convoy that they were supposed to get sentenced there for parking violations and noise violations. If Justin Trudeau would only went out there and spoke to them, we could have avoided this whole mess. But here's Justin Trudeau making his speech there.
The protest groups have called for a sit down with your government. They've called for negotiations. They've obviously called for an end to mandates. Is there any scenario in which you'd be willing to negotiate with these protesters to have them leave?
We will remain steadfast to the mandate given to parliamentarians 6 months ago in the last election. You will remember that there were very, very clear differences of opinion around mandatory vaccination, around vaccine mandates put forward in that election, and they were heavily debated and indeed protested by some of the main people who are same people who are protesting right now in Ottawa. And the commitment that we made as a government, if we got reelected, is we would stand by science. That is the promise we made to Canadians. That is the decision Canadians took in the last election by voting for parties that were supporting those mandates. So having a group of people who disagree with the outcome of an election, who want to go a different way and bring in an alternative government, is a non-starter in a responsible democracy.
You know what's a non-starter in responsible democracy, Justin? Is government-funded media that is at the begging bowl because you've crippled them with Bill C-18. Bill C-18 takes away our ability to put our news on Meta, which has been we had an audience of over 200,000, and then media outlets across Canada have lost half their revenues and half their traffic because of Bill C-18. That's what destroys democracy, the freedom of the press, and now you have most media outlets at the begging bowl for the Liberal government to fund them. There you go. And this is from the clip here from the Donald Trump visited the Fed there with Jerome Powell, and then he handed in that letter the receipts there from when he said it was over budget. And there's no clip here, but this says, my financial advisor looking at my portfolio, it's 100% Tesla. There's Powell was puzzled when he looked at that letter there that was from his own thing, and then they had a bit of a discussion as to what it included in this over budget. $3.1 billion for a renovation for the U.S. Fed. What is in there? Is that where they keep all the gold? It's not at Fort Knox anymore? You have to wonder. Fool of the day, I'm going to give it to Justin Trudeau, but he's also a Hall of Famer. Hall of Famer, Fool of the Day for us here at Now Media. That's a very short story. All by myself today. Ian Burns is back on Monday. So again, the big news today is that Donald Trump's clip there saying, likely no deal for Canada by August 1st. And Mark Carney had been downplaying that as well, saying they're not likely expected. So not a big surprise there. Japan, that deal that they got with Japan there, it's a curious one for sure. But I mean, Japan is actually giving the Americans $550 million to use to invest how they see. And they're only getting 10% of the profits in whatever they invested in. So what a deal for Japan. And plus Japan is going to pay 15% tariffs, although Japan relies heavily on the United States for protection, from their military protection from China and other adversaries. That's our show for today. Back on Monday at 9 a.m. And Ian Burns will be back, and he's got lots of commentary always. So look forward to be back with Ian on Monday. And with that said, I hope you enjoy the weekend. And it's beautiful in the Okanagan here as well. So hopefully wherever you're at there in Canada, that you're having a beautiful day and enjoy the weekend.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.